Hello, everybody. My name's Steve, and I'm here today with author Thomas J. Devens, the author of Stone and Shield and Split Paths. And I actually have a signed copy that Thomas sent to me, which is awesome, and a bookmark. I have to show this off. So, how cool is that? I'm a fan for life. So, thanks, Thomas, for coming by to chat today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, uh, it's always great to meet new people and introduce to new authors and just have a fun Friday chat. So tell us about your books. How did you start writing them? What were your inspirations for it?
So I started probably about 8 years ago. I think it was. I think I'm probably fairly new to writing in a way. Um, I had been interested in writing when I was a kid, but never thought I'd be any good at it. And would try and always stop. And then finally, I was just decided to give it a shot. And probably spent about a year world building, and then finally started writing. Actually started liking some of what I was putting down and just kept with it and probably worked on my because the first book came out last year in September, so that was about 6 years of working on that one.
Wow.
And yeah, I think what mostly inspired me to do it was just getting back into fantasy in general because I hadn't really read much in quite a while, and then I was rereading the Sandman comics,
Hmm.
and then that kind of pushed me back into my old love of mythology and started reading a bunch of like Irish and Norse mythology, and then that just ended up pushing over to fantasy, and next thing you know, I was just obsessed with the genre again. Decided to stick with it.
Wow, nice. The Sandman comics are so great. I mean,
Oh yeah,
you can read them over and over again and still catch new things.
yeah. I think I've read the whole series through probably like 3 times now, and the last time was probably like 8 years ago, so I might be about due.
And you said you spent 6 years world building.
No, the first year was primarily world building, and
Oh, okay.
then the following 5 or 6 years, like I was trying to find the story that I wanted to tell in the world that I built. And then once I found that, it was probably about 5 years of writing and rewriting the first book.
Wow. So you created the world first and then built your story around the world you built?
Yeah, I did most of the world building first, and then there's still stuff that I come up with on the fly and as I'm writing, because I probably could have just kept going for years with world building, but I read enough that that's a rabbit hole people fall down that I figure I should probably try to avoid it.
Yeah, definitely. And with world building, how did you keep track of all your different of the world? Did you have ways that you like a spreadsheet or yellow sticky pads or?
I am generally awful with computers, and I think at the time when I started, I didn't even have a computer. So yeah, I just had like 1 inch binders, like several of them stuffed full, falling apart, like duct taped back together, and like one for each, like one for people, one for regions, everything like that. Just like a messy stack of binders in my old bedroom.
So you kept them all in binders. How many binders did you have?
I think at the time I was had like 4 of them, and then since then I've consolidated. Now I have 3. One for what I'm currently working on, one for one of the old beaten up ones that's still falling apart of just stuff that's set aside to look into, and then like one with just basic information that I might have to check into once in a while.
Hmm. So when you set out to create the story after you had the world, and when you set out to create the story, what were your goals with the story? What did you want the reader to take away from it?
I mostly just wanted to tell a story. Like that was the beginning. Was I just wanted to tell the story I wanted to read, and then as I went on from there, I started like as far as like themes go. I mostly kind of lean towards like the found family sort of theme because that's one that's always been important to me. That I always loved seeing in books.
Hmm. And for the story, were there any tropes that you either set out to like you embraced any tropes or any that you stayed away from?
There aren't so much any that I'm purposely trying to stay away from. There's some tropes I don't usually enjoy too much, but at the same time, I'll come across books that I love that have those tropes that do them so well that it doesn't matter. So, for the most part, I don't really set aside like I'm not gonna have this trope. If it comes up, it'll come up. And most of my like I'm very much a what do they call it, a pantser. Like I write like after I did the world building, I just started and write as I go. So I might come into a point where I'll have a character that is almost like a like the chosen one sort of trope, but not really. So they might pop up, but I'll try to do something differently with them when they do.
Yeah. So what's the elevator pitch for the series? How would you describe it to someone who hasn't read it yet?
For the series, it would be I'm horrible at these. Um, I'd say the emperor died, and his teenage son is taking over the throne, and not good at it. He's a teenager, and most of that is the background that sets the tone of this world as the empire is changing, and then you follow this mercenary company that's just trying to make their way through it and make a living and get paid and hopefully be able to retire one day alive.
Nice. And have you thought how many books will be in the series yet? Do you have it planned out?
At this point, I'm looking at. I think it's going to be 5 or 6. Is I was thinking 5, but at this point, I'm kind of deciding whether the third book is going to be one book or split into two. So that would be the deciding factor.
Hmm.
Because I like having the books kind of shorter. Because I love like giant epic fantasy books, but sometimes it's nice to have one that you can go through in like a week or something. Like so, my first was I think 100,000 words. Then the second one was like 80,000. And I just think it's a nice change of pace to have something a little bit shorter. But it's looking right now like the third book could be 200 to 250,000.
Oh wow.
So I may try to cut that into two because it's basically two major storylines, but separated ones that are happening at the same time. So I could easily just have each storyline have its own separate book. So that's the question I'm at right now. And if that becomes 2 books, it'll be a 6 book series.
Oh wow. That's a big book. And when as you're writing, do you have someone that you bounce ideas off of, or that you say, "Hey, read this. Tell me what you think." Or like a beta reader.
Right now, like when I started doing this, I had no idea what I was doing. So I hadn't had anyone like that. Um, but as I'm learning more, like I'm kind of keeping, as I do this series, I'm just kind of continuing to follow the like the form that I've been going with. But I'm also writing another novel right now
Hmm.
that's set in the same world but takes place. It's going to be a standalone, and for that, I'm going to like teach myself all the things that I didn't teach myself before publishing the first book, and go through with the readers and everything like that. So try to learn as I go.
Yeah. What were some things that you look back on now and you wish, like with this standalone book you're working on, what were the things that you wish you would have known before the first book? If you could go back and give yourself some advice.
I think most of it would be knowing, like, getting better with social media, with promoting and doing that well enough before the book comes out. And yeah, and finding beta readers and going through the whole process properly rather than just like, because the first book I released, I had the whole thing written, rough drafts, however many drafts I did, and then the pandemic hit, and I got laid
Of
off from my
course.
old job, and I was just home, and I was like, well, this book's ready to go, so I decided to publish it, and I think I had like put up a pre-order like maybe 2 months before it came out, but like didn't really know about getting a hold of bloggers and how to go about that and everything. So never really got any arcs out or anything like that. So it just kind of like came out without anyone knowing about it.
Yeah.
So so yeah, that's what I'm gonna correct with the standalone book,
Yeah.
and also why I want it to be a standalone. Just then, it's another entry point, and then it's still set in the same world. So if people like that, then that'll point them in the direction of the series.
That's a good idea. And the standalone book, do those events take place in the same time period as the books in the series?
They take place a few thousand years before.
Oh, okay.
So, um, so you won't need to read the standalone to enjoy the series, or vice versa. But if you read both, there will be things that kind of you'll hear about in the like you'll hear about some of the history of the world in the series, and that'll kind of shed some light on what happened in the standalone. Like it'll be like little Easter eggs more so.
So when as you're writing the standalone now, with that, this takes place before the events of the series, are you still going back to those binders that you created, or are you building on the binders and the world that you built originally, or are you adding on to that?
Most of the stuff in the standalone takes place far enough before the most of the world building I did
Oh,
it
okay.
initially. Some of it has come up as I was writing the series, so it left me with enough of a gray area that I don't have to worry too much about reading too much of those old binders.
Yeah. I wonder if it's hard. And, you have this binder with all with the world in it. Is it hard to want to break those rules sometimes, or want to change things up as you go from the world that you first created? Have you changed a lot just because the story took you a certain direction?
Yeah. Fortunately, like I've been good so far. Like nothing that's ended up in the book, like in the first book, that I wanted to go back and change come the second book. But there's a lot of the world building that has changed entirely. In fact, when I started world building, I was planning on like the story I was planning on writing originally was completely different period of time as the series. I was actually doing the world building of a place, going through their history, and then I was just decided, oh, this is the story I want to tell. So just completely changed everything around on me.
That happens a lot, though.
Yeah.
Just the story takes you a certain direction.
Mhm.
Uh, and you mentioned social media and promoting your book and just kind of getting yourself out there. And someone told me one time how many books are published every day on Amazon, and I forget the number. It was some astronomical, crazy number. But how hard is it to stand out or to get attention to your books? It must be a little daunting at first to get that ball rolling.
I'd it is for me. I'd imagine it is generally. Um, I couldn't really say how hard it is because most of the I mean, I think my biggest problem is myself because I'm not usually a very outgoing person. Like, I don't use social media that much.
Yeah.
And so I'm like trying to, and I know like it's on like Twitter and everything, there's an excellent writing community, fantasy, sci-fi, horror community, like all of the genres, the book bloggers and everything. Like I see what's going on there. It's awesome that it exists. There's some great people out there, but it's just not in my nature usually to just like push myself into it. So that's what I'm working on right now, and try to chat with people here and there, make a
Yeah.
comment on Twitter. But yeah, I was saying, I was telling my friend before, I always feel like when I'm about to like reply to someone's post on Twitter that I'm like that guy at the bar where you're like having a conversation with your friends and then just some guy comes up, says one line, and then just kind of stands behind them awkwardly.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes some getting used to, and Twitter moves so fast that it's hard. It's
Yeah.
just constantly going and going and
Mhm.
going. So it's
Yeah,
hard
I
to
don't
kind of
even know.
jump in.
I don't even know how people manage to see half of what's on there. Like especially with however the algorithms work, where things get buried and whatnot.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the algorithm forms your opinion or forms around you.
Mm.
It tries to focus on what you enjoy, but it's kind of wild. And our friend Saf is here, lurking, mostly lurking due to babysitting.
I
Nice. Hey, Saf. And are there any fantasy books that you've read recently that you've really enjoyed?
Oh, there's been a ton. I've I started making the shift recently. I'm trying to concentrate more on just indie authors. Like there's still things, new books coming out from like the big publishers I want to read, but I've been putting those on the back burner.
Hmm.
Um, and finding time to read is always difficult, so I've made the shift that I primarily go with audiobooks nowadays.
Hmm.
But I know you just had H.L. Tinsley on.
Hmm.
We Men of Ash and Shadows, one of my favorite books of the year. That was just an amazing story, and I can't wait for the next one. And the audiobook narration is excellent too. Um, R.J. Bailey, I believe, is the narrator on that, and he does a great job. And he also did the narration for Lee C. Connolly's The Dead Sagas,
Hmm.
um, The Ritual of Bone and The Ritual of Flesh. And both those books are amazing. I don't know, have you heard of those ones?
I haven't, but I'm about to look them up right now.
It's like, it's Vikings and zombies.
Oh, what more do you
And
want?
yeah, and he does a great job, like, of taking like the zombie tropes and making them his own. And yeah, highly recommended.
Oh, nice. And would you, what subgenre would you say that your series falls into in fantasy?
Mine would just be probably epic fantasy. I usually say like gritty epic fantasy. Um, Most of my influences would probably be considered grimdark,
Hmm.
but I say mine's probably my series maybe like grimdark adjacent. Like there's definitely a little bit of hope in there, and but also it's mercenaries. I mean, they're paid to kill people pretty much. So
Yeah.
there's definitely the moral grayness there.
Yeah. And what is your opinion on the term grimdark? Because everyone seems to have a different opinion on that term.
I I don't really know what it means.
Yeah. I always took
Like
it as dark fantasy, but
yeah, most of the books I prefer seem to get categorized as it, so I just go with that. Um, I always think just like yeah, like that gray morality, the bad guy may not just be a bad guy, the good guy may not be that great, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And also a little bit of just, it does tend to be a little bit, what's the best way? A little dirtier in your face, like, you know, a lot of the books where we'll get the reviews where it's someone reviews the book on Amazon or something, says, I didn't like the language they used, so I had to put this down.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take it. And you said you enjoyed Wee Man and Bastion Shadow. Are there any other ones you've enjoyed this year or recently?
What else have I gone through recently? I know there was. If it's not rude, I'm gonna just bring up my phone real quick and
Yeah,
go
go
through
for
the
it.
Audible app. Oh yeah. Well, oh, and I know you've read River of Thieves. I watched
Hmm.
your videos on that and your conversation with Clayton Snyder. That
It's
book was
hilarious.
great. Like I'm
It's
looking forward to
hilarious.
the next one in that too. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
and
so funny.
I've gotten through. I've finished the first two books in Rob J. Hayes' Moral Technique series.
Hmm.
Never Die and Holmes Gambit,
Oh,
and
yeah.
those are those were like really fun like adventure sort of things. Like I used to love like the old kung fu movies and stuff like that. So kind of remind me of that. Or kind of like old westerns, just like traveling across the land and all these battles coming up and stuff. Like they were great books. But everything I've read by Rob J. Hayes so far, I've enjoyed.
Nice. Are there any series that you want to read, you just haven't had a chance? I'm sure there's a
More,
long list,
more
but
than I could even begin to
yeah.
name. Yeah, there's way too many.
Yeah. Just so many books to read, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, and just never enough time.
No, there's never enough time.
And that's one that I feel like that's one of the worst things about writing too. Is like every time, like the time that I would normally spend reading, it's like, oh, well, I should really be working on my own book. So at least I have a job where I can just pop in my headphones and put on an audiobook for 10 hours straight and
Oh, nice.
go through a lot that way.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
That's a lot easier to get through audiobooks.
and I like them a lot, but there is something that it never really beats like sitting like laying down in front of a campfire with a beer and a book. Like that's always great too.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. And when you're writing, do you listen to music while you write?
Most of the time, sometimes it'll just be quiet or whatever's going on in the background. Because of schedules and stuff, I've just kind of like adapted to like if I get home from work and I'm too exhausted to write, I'll still open up the Word document on my laptop and just have it there looking at me the whole time. Like if I'm trying to do something else, it's just like staring at me like, hey, you got to work on this. And if I start writing, get a few words written down, and like get into the swing of it, good. If not, then I'll just it's there in case I get into it.
And
But yeah, like so,
yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I was just gonna say yeah, like sometimes I'll like come into my room and put on some music and just I'm gonna sit here and do nothing but write. But yeah, I pretty much just try to make sure that the laptop's open and trying to force me to do it all the time.
How does that work out? Is it better when you have it open and you're able to just get a few lines in, or do you try to have blocks of time dedicated to it?
I try to dedicate time to it, but sometimes it's just not in the cards. And yeah, like if I just have the laptop open, I might I might type up a sentence and then just not really be feeling it, but I'll still have it there because in a few minutes that could change.
Yeah.
Or I could like get a sentence down and then next thing you know, a couple hours is going by. I'm a few chapters in, like a few thousand words. So yeah, as long as I just have it always there to kind of taunt me and like keep me on my feet, it tends to work out.
Yeah.
Like I think I probably average out weekly a decent word count.
And are with this book you mentioned beta readers and trying to kind of do things a little differently now that you've learned some lessons with your first book. Um, do you have an editor that goes through, or have you looked into editors? Or it's always interesting to me that some people just go through it without an editor, and some people stress the importance of editors. And I've
Yeah,
heard both sides.
yeah, I know that an editor is very important. I haven't been hiring an editor for my first books because I unfortunately just don't have the money right now.
Yeah,
But yeah, with the standalone, that's my plan. I'm gonna once it's done, I'm just gonna have it set aside while I'm working on the main series, and everything about that I'm gonna try to go through the way I should, like set aside money for professional cover art, hire an artist, and hire an editor, and go through all of the steps.
yeah. I talked to Catherine Silva last night, and the video's out tomorrow. But we talked about editors and the different types because I didn't know much about editors, and there's line by line editors and there's theme editors. There's a bunch of
Mhm.
different kinds, and I didn't realize it gets so pricey to get an editor. There, you
Yeah,
can dump thousands into getting an editor, so
yeah,
it's tough to make that decision whether or not it's worth investing in.
yeah, and I know that like their work's important, so I get why it's so expensive, but just not necessarily a possibility all the time,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
it's a tough.
if you end up having to put like a thousand or a couple thousand down on it, and you don't know if there'll ever be that turnaround on it or not, too.
Yeah. Have you submitted your books to any competitions or anything like that to try and get people to read it?
Stone and Shield was in SPFBO,
Oh, okay.
and that was it went out in the first round, but it definitely got out there. And I got I always like seeing like getting reviews and seeing what people have to say. And overall, I thought it was a pretty good review. You know,
Mhm.
there's definitely I'm aware of the flaws that are in it too, but overall, it seemed like a good review, so I was happy with it. And it seemed like my sales kind of went up a little bit around that time, so that was also pretty cool.
Nice.
And yeah, with the standalone, that's another one of the reasons why I want to have a standalone because then when it's ready to go, I can enter in that again.
Yeah. This is really tough competition and those competition
Oh
those
yeah,
there's so many
those
great books. It's tough.
I remember just like when the competition started and you just see like the list of the books that have gone to the same blog as you, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely not going to last long in this. I think I think not in my same group, but in the same overall blog was like Neurosca Groans by Clayton Snyder and Michael R. Fletcher. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm not gonna get this.
It's a tough bracket to be in.
Yeah.
And how long does that take? So you submit your book for a competition like that. How long does that whole process take and for you to get feedback on it?
I don't think it was. It didn't seem like that long. I mean, at the time, it seemed longer than it actually was because you were just kind of like wondering, like, oh, what's going to happen. And but overall, I think So I think submissions were in May, I think, and then the competition started. I think maybe June. I think by July is when the review batch that my book was in went up. And so, but each blog kind of has their own schedule. They do it their own way. Like the group I was in, where the one blogger for that website just kind of had his 10 books all at once, his picks, the ones he cut. So he read all the books, and then once he was done with them, put up the reviews for everything at once. And then I think some other places they'll like review a book as they read it, then move on to the next, and then after the reviews pop up for each book, then they'll do their cuts and their semifinalists. So yeah, I think it all depends on what blog you get there.
Yeah, it's tough to wait. I'm sure with with the book, it's tough to spend so much time writing a book and then it goes out and people buy it and then you don't hear anything because you have to wait for them to read it and then hear back from them. So that must be a little like nerve wracking to wait for that feedback.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's gotta be tough. And when you are writing, and do you listen to lots of music when you sit down and have blocks of time to write? And if you do, what kind of music do you listen to?
A lot of the times it'll depend. Oops, sorry about that. It'll depend. I listen to all sorts of music really, and sometimes I'll like the scene that I'm writing will dictate what I listen to. So like the standalone I'm working on is very Norse inspired. So I've been listening to a lot of like Mordruna and Highland. I don't know if you've heard of any of those. It's kind of like Norse inspired, like Viking folk music sort of stuff, and almost with like a bit of like an ambient metal influence to it.
Going to look that up.
And but then sometimes I'll just end up tossing on like I like a lot of like Irish and Scottish folk music. I'll put that on, or bluegrass, or just like 70s punk rock. I'm all over the place usually.
Nice. Yeah, it's always good to find different types of music, and whether it's old or new, it's good to find new types of music.
Yeah.
I think people get used to listening to the same stuff through years and years and years. So it's good to find new stuff to listen to.
Mhm.
And I've seen some authors that they create Spotify playlists for books they've written, like a soundtrack for them. Have you
Mhm.
thought about doing that for your books?
I've thought about it, and I'd like to, but I've also noticed that I'm just not good at making Spotify playlists. Like, when I was younger, I would make mixtapes, no problem. But yeah, like I'll go to when I end up listening to music at work or something, I'll put on Spotify, and I always end up going to like the curated playlists that they pop up. That's like, oh, this is what you'll like today.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh well, I forgot to make a playlist ever, so yeah, I guess I'm gonna listen to that. So I just end up listening to what they tell me to. I'm like, I'd really rather listen to this, but I don't have a playlist.
But
Or I'll put
Spotify
on,
said so. Yeah.
I'll like toss on an album, but then half an hour, 45 minutes later, I gotta go back over to my phone and find something else to listen to.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool that authors do that because it's kind of gives you an insight on what was in their mind or what they
Mhm.
envisioned for kind of the feeling and the vibe that they had or that they want the reader to have. I think it's kind of cool, but
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot of work because a couple of the ones that I've seen lately, there's like 60 songs in it, and that stuff takes time to go through and pick all those songs and create the
Oh
playlist.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
think I may actually. I'm gonna be probably rereading my series. Like once I'm done with the standalone and get back to work on the third book. I'm gonna reread the first two books. So maybe as I'm doing that, like on each chapter, I'll be like, "Oh, this song is good for you."
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I
Give it
think
a
it
shot.
like yeah, like Nicole Igener, I always mispronounce her last name. She wrote Beguiled by Night. We're reading that now, and she created a playlist of the music she was listening to while she wrote it. I think that was really cool because we've been listening to it. I was reading. That's kind of neat.
Yeah,
Yeah. And Saf said, "Love the inclusion of axe thrower in your Twitter bio."
thank you. It's one of my favorite hobbies that I don't do nearly as often as I should.
So, do you do it just for fun, or is it like a stress reliever? Or
Yeah, just for fun. It's when I was growing up, my dad always had us shooting archery, and we'd throw hatchets and everything too. Like since I was like I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6. Like to the point where like with archery and everything, when I was in the fifth, sixth grade, we would shoot archery for our elementary school gym classes. And when my gym teacher knew my older brother and my dad, and when I had the class, I got a bullseye and then got a Robin Hood and split the arrow. And
oh
he was like,
wow, that's
"Oh,"
cool.
and I find out like I already knew my dad had done that several times before, and I find out my brother did it in the gym class a few years before me, and the gym teacher was just like, "Oh, it's one of them."
Oh yeah,
And then yeah, so and my dad would have us with just regular camping axe or hatchets, throwing those. So it's been something we've been doing for a long time.
nice. Have you ever gone? And they have those places where you can go and throw axes at the bullseye. And do you go there, or is it just more kind
I
of goofing
haven't.
off?
I've been at a few things where they have them, and I just decided not to give them $10 to throw a couple of their axes at a piece of plywood that's kind of falling apart entirely.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so I,
I
I,
think
I
it's.
live in a what was
I'm
that?
sorry. Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I live in a city, in a small city now, so I don't do it nearly as often. But whenever I go to my folks' house, my dad's got like a a big like tree round hanging up, and we'll go over there and throw them all the time.
For free.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's those places are popping out now and people enjoy kind of throwing axes and then these other places I forget what they call them where they have basically like a room and they give you a bat and you could just go in and like hit washing machines and you just break things. I forget what they
I
call
haven't
it.
I haven't heard of that one yet.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I forget what they call them, but they basically fill it with a bunch of junk and you just go in there and hit it and you wear a face shield and I guess like a stress reliever thing, but yeah.
yeah. I mean that's a hell of a business plan.
Yeah, I mean, good kudos to them, but
Yeah.
still, it's kind of strange. Josh says folk metal and punk rock, or I'm sorry, folk metal and folk punk are so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of like a lot of folk metal bands and stuff that I've been getting into recently that friends have been pointing out to me and stuff. A lot of that is kind of newer grounds for me, but I'm loving it.
Nice. Any bands that you can think of recommend?
Um, so those two that I mentioned, I mean, they're not wholly on the metal side, but
Mhm.
yeah, Wardruna, and I don't know if it's Hylung or Helung, but I think it's Hielung. And then what's that one? I can't remember the name of the band. It's like a metal band that's like metal and Mongolian throat singing. The
Oh yeah,
the HUQ, or but yeah, they're awesome.
yeah. I think I've seen them around. And Seth says I missed the mixtape era.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Before there was Spotify, there was mixtapes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I used to still have a big milk crate full of all my cassette tapes that I think got lost last time I moved.
Yeah. They tend to get thrown by the wayside when you start moving, and this is like a big milk crate full of old cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think before when there was an album, the album, besides getting the actual physical media, the the um, the art of making an album and having the songs in a certain order, and it was kind of an art form. And now it's all
Mhm.
singles, and kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, and I feel like it's rare that you hear people just listening to an album all the way through rather than like on shuffle, where a lot of albums, like it's completely different if you listen to it from the first track to the last than if you just have it popping on a random song here and there.
Yeah, especially like concept albums. It's there's a
Hmm.
whole this it's they build it around something and they want you to listen to it. But maybe we'll get back to those days eventually. Go back to making mixtapes. Seth said, with the recent trend of ambient room videos on YouTube, I can't wait for authors make those ambient room videos. Hmm.
Not sure what those are.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those. You have to let us know, Seth, what that is. Ambient room videos. I'm not sure. Oh, they're called rage rooms. Those rooms that they fill with junk, and then they give you a baseball bat and a face shield and charge you to go break stuff.
Ah,
In fact, Alfred Alley, he's a horror author. He wrote a story, a short story that was based kind of around rage rooms, but it was during the zombie apocalypse, and the business actually would charge you to go beat zombies up. There was zombies tied into these rooms instead of it being appliances and random furniture or whatever. It was actually zombies you'd go in and beat the crap out of for a while as a business
I could
model. I thought
see
that was
that
cool.
happening. I could see that happening if we had an actual zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, and if there was
There's
a zombie
always a way to
apocalypse,
market it.
oh yeah, there's always a way to make money. And if there was a zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice?
I'd probably go with the axe.
Oh yeah, duh, that was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and a bow would be good to have on hand.
yeah, a bow would be really nice.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously a gun, but eventually you're going to run out of ammo and not be able to get more. And they're loud.
yeah, yeah, and plus the noise too. It's hard to hide when you're making so much noise and calling
Yeah.
attention to yourself. It's probably not a good idea. A bow or like a crossbow would be perfect.
Yeah.
You can make that last for a while. And Josh says the HU is a Mongolian band. Okay, that must
Yeah.
be it. Cool. I'll have to look at that. I think I've heard of them before. It's hard to miss. It's hard to forget those when what is it called, the throat singers or the
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I've only gotten into it in the past couple of years, but I love that stuff.
yeah
Both the like the who or Hugh, I'm not sure how to
yeah
pronounce it, but like what they do, and then just like the straight like traditional Mongolian throat singing is awesome.
yeah. Steph said ambient videos are like environments, cafe ambience, library ambience, so you can immerse yourself in another environment, either for reading or studying. They're like white noise. Oh, okay. Oh, it might be good. Yeah, so it's a little bit like sounds like a little bit like a Spotify playlist, except it's more of a to kind of get in the right mindset or the right mind
Mm.
space, maybe. Yeah. So maybe that's your answer. Maybe you need a writer ambience to get your to get the juices flowing.
Yeah.
There's you know you mentioned before we went live, we were talking about decompressing and after work, like what you enjoy doing. You mentioned playing video games, and with fantasy and video games, of course, the first thing that comes to one of the first games that come to my mind is Skyrim, and plus because we're talking about music, and Skyrim recently had its 10-year anniversary. Are you a fan of the game?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's wasted way too much of my time. Yeah, I was actually just playing that earlier today.
Oh, nice.
Gave myself a
And
little bit of video game time.
the I guess it's called the anniversary edition is out now. Um,
Yeah, which I said I wasn't going to buy, and then I did, but only because I found out you could just get it as an upgrade rather than buying the 20th version of Skyrim.
oh no, I have
Because
no to get it.
I feel like it's just always released on something else.
Yeah, so many platforms. What is with what are the big changes in the anniversary edition?
It's mostly, as far as I know, it's just added content like through the creation club thing that they have.
Hmm.
So it's basically you're paying for a bunch of mods,
Oh, okay.
but I have it on a PlayStation 4, so I can't get all like the without it on a computer where you could just get all those great mods for free.
Yeah,
So
the joys of PC gaming.
yeah,
My favorite part of my wife used to always play on PS4, and she'd always be encumbered and wouldn't be able to carry all of her junk around. So the console commands, I got her hooked on the PC version because on the console you can, or on the PC you can use console commands to increase your carry weight.
mhm,
That makes life a lot easier to carry everything you
yeah.
want.
Or you could always have like the companion with you that you could make them carry everything. But if you try to sneak around at all, like I stopped playing with the companion next to me because I always ended up killing him by accident.
Yeah,
Like
especially when you sneak, they always run into traps or yeah,
yeah, yeah, like you go around the trap and then they're right behind you to trigger it.
yeah. Call attention to you, and then you end up having to kill, loot them, and then you're encumbered and
Yeah.
just a
Or
mess.
you got an enemy in your sights about to release the arrow and they just walk right in front of you.
Yeah. What's your favorite archetype to play in Skyrim?
Um, I usually go with starting out like sneaking and archery, but like in each dungeon or whatever, I'll take out a few and then just dual wield and run it. So, combination of the sneaky archer and raging berserker.
I always plan on creating like a dual wield or a double two hand or something, but sneaking and archery just makes things so much easier.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun to just like hide and hit someone in the head with an arrow and then have them laying there and the person next to him just say, "Oh, it must be nothing."
Yeah. Oh, I think I heard something, and they're person next to them with an arrow in their head. Yeah. I'm assuming you played the whole game, right? Skyrim.
Yeah, for the most part. I think I did all the main quest lines um, a long time ago.
Yeah. It's been a while. What was your favorite quest line?
Hmm, I'm not sure. I think
It's a tough
yeah,
one.
I'm not. Yeah, that is a
Yeah.
tough one.
It's tough.
I mean, a lot of I did feel like a lot of like the main quest lines. By the time you get to the end of them, they're just very underwhelming. You know, like The main one where you have the Parthenax option,
Yeah.
and it's just like I felt like that one. Once I got to it, I was like, oh, so this it's just done now.
Yeah.
What am
It's
I?
just like
Where
over.
do I go from here? But so yeah, maybe the Dawn Guard. I think that one was that's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fun. I think the what do they call it? The Assassin's Guild is pretty fun. The quest line.
Oh yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah. Even the Thieves Guild isn't bad. I think the one that I didn't really care for was the Warriors Guild because you can turn it into a werewolf, but yeah, it's not
Yeah,
as cool as it sounds. Yeah.
and it was that was just like moved way too quickly. Like I think you do like four random quests for him, and then it's like, oh, you're one of the top notch companions.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you just met me.
Yeah. I just got here and like, you're the leader of the guild now. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, like I
And
remember.
the yeah.
Did you play Morrowind?
I did a little bit, not a whole lot.
Like I liked, like I nostalgically look back and like, oh, that was the best game ever. And certain things about it were. And then I also tried playing it again recently, and I'm like, the combat in this game is awful. I can't hit a damn thing, and nope, I'm dead. But yeah, I liked like the Fighters Guild quests in that game, which seemed a little bit more in depth. But I never got too far in that one either, so I couldn't say for sure.
Did you play Oblivion?
Not as much. Like I played a good amount of Morrowind, but never beat it because I think uh, I think I got Morrowind around the time Oblivion came out, and then I got Oblivion around the time Skyrim came out. Like I'm always quite a few years behind, and so yeah, I actually no, I never got Oblivion. I played it at a friend's house, so I had about 4 hours of playtime on
You can spend there's a lot of time sinks in that game because you can spend so much time just talking to people. The speechcraft. You can,
that. Yeah,
I mean, just back and forth and look at the reactions and try and build your skills there. Just run around jumping and build your jumping skills
yeah.
and things like that.
So you can like just scale mountains, no problem.
Yeah, just walk on the mountains like this. Yeah, they're such detailed games though. And it must take forever to write them. And
Yeah,
even in Skyrim, there's these books laying around, and some of them are long books.
yeah. I've one day I set out with the task that I was going to read all the books in Skyrim, and then I decided that I have other books that I should read at home. like I had been collecting them and putting them all on the bookshelves in the library of the in-game house. I was like, once I have them all set up, I'll start reading these. And then I was like, wow, I need a better hobby.
Wow. So you actually started getting every book and you put them on the shelf in the house. In your house?
Well, I was working, I was planning on it.
Okay.
And whenever I collected a book, I'd put them on the like I'd load them into the bookshelves. How many of the books I actually got, I couldn't. I didn't wasn't keeping. I didn't have a checklist or anything.
Wow. That's I mean, I wonder if someone's done that. That must be a monumental task.
I actually, I don't know if they actually read all of them, but I did see a YouTube video of someone that said that they read all the book. Like I think it was titled like "I read all the books in Skyrim, so you don't have to." And it was just kind of making like it was making fun of them, and that most of it was a bunch of nonsense.
Oh wow. Yeah. That's wild. That'd be really cool though to collect all the books and then pile them on the shelf.
I am curious, how how many words are there in all of the books compiled? Like how are all the Skyrim books in comparison in size to like an actual novel?
There's some long ones. There's some pretty
Yeah,
long books in there. Yeah. I wonder who went through and wrote all those books. It must have taken a long time.
yeah. And are they? I wonder if they're different for each game, or if, I know there's got to be at least some sort of crossover
Hmm.
between
Well,
like.
in some of them, in some of the books, they mention Oblivion, and some of them, I think they mention Morrowind. They mention events in previous games.
So yeah, if they're if they just had to go and write like 3 to 10 page in-game books, like 300 of them for every game.
Oh man, that's got to be a lot. That's got to be a lot of writing.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough job. A bunch of novellas, maybe, or they aren't too long, but there's some long ones in there.
Mhm.
Ish. Yeah. With publishing your book, um, what was the most surprising thing about publishing?
It was easy.
Really?
Like, yeah, like going through Amazon, it was just, I didn't expect it to be so easy. Because before, when I first started writing, I was looking into like just getting my book printed, like going through a printing press. And I hadn't even heard of like the print on demand stuff at that point. So I was always expecting like, oh, I'm gonna have to save up a few $1,000 and then end up having like boxes upon boxes of copies of my own book taking up all the space in my tiny apartment. And then finally I looked into all like I heard about Amazon's print on demand and I was like, oh wait, I just had to do formatting, which is a little irritating and a pain in the ass at times, but okay, once I have the formatting done, then I just submit everything here, hit a button, and I published a book. So yeah, it was
Wow.
a lot easier than I was expecting. The
So
publishing aspect.
yeah, with formatting the book, and you have to pick formatting. Do you pick like the font size and the font type, or what all do you choose?
Everything, like um, how big of an indentation at the beginning of each paragraph, because
Hmm.
like this, like the standard, like hitting tab to indent for a paragraph is like a half an inch, which isn't like usually the standard
Hmm.
printed, I think. So adjusting all that and then adjusting your margins, bringing it down to the size of the page that the paperback's going to be. And then, yeah, it's just like a lot of small nitpicky things that you go through here and there. So after the first time, because it's not really that difficult. Like I just went online, like Googled and found like a blog that was like giving you the basics of how to format your own book.
Hmm.
So following that, it was not difficult. It was just like tedious, especially like at the end of writing 100,000 words and then formatting all of that into that size. So one thing that I did after that was kept it in mind and kept everything saved in a Word file of the format so that I just have what the files that I'm typing, and then when I'm done with the chapter, I copy paste it into the Word file so it's automatically going into the formatting
Oh,
because
okay.
it makes it a lot easier than going back and tweaking everything at the end of the entire book.
So can you, when once you've set your formatting and your indentations and fonts and everything else, can you save that and use that same template, or do you have to do it for each book?
What I've been doing is basically I just make two save file. I made two
Oh,
save files of the first book, and then the second one I just deleted everything and then saved it as a blank.
Oh, wow.
so that I could just copy and paste everything into it and good to go. And
Nice.
then when I'll save that as a separate file so that I still have the blank saved.
And are your books available on Kindle Unlimited?
Yep,
Oh, they are. Okay.
yep. I try to keep them on that. I had considered um, looking into like the other options, but I think that seems like the Kindle Unlimited is a pretty good way to get your books out there. So I'm gonna keep sticking with the KDP exclusive thing so we can stay on that.
And to be on Kindle Unlimited, your books have to be exclusive to Amazon, right? Is that the way it works?
The ebook does.
The
So the
ebook. Okay.
paperback you could, I'm pretty sure you could go other places with, but the ebook has to be Amazon exclusive.
Hmm.
There may be some exceptions for that, but I don't know about
Hmm. How does Kindle Unlimited work for an author? You get paid for page reads, right? Is that kind of how it tracks?
Yeah, so I think what they do is I looked into it and I think like at the each month it takes Amazon takes into consideration like how much money they had coming in from Kindle Unlimited subscriptions. Then that gets divided up a certain way, and then that decides how much you make as a royalty per page read. So it's not a definite, it's not like a set in stone amount that you're going to make every month per page. It'll fluctuate a little bit, but not that much. And then in the end, I think it usually works out to, I did the math at one point where I think it worked out to being about about the same as making the royalties on the ebook,
Hmm.
but maybe a little bit better. Like if someone read your entire book, it was either the same or a little bit better than the royalty on the ebook.
How does it work for paperbacks? Does it cost more upfront to print the book? So I'm sure you probably see less of a return on paperbacks, or is it about the
Yeah.
same as ebooks?
So as an author, it doesn't cost anything up front. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
for the paperback, you get so on the ebook you get if you're exclusive through Amazon and within a certain price range, you get a 70% royalty for each ebook sold. With the paperback, it's a 30 or 35% royalty,
Hmm.
but I'm also pretty sure that that's after printing costs.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if you're selling your book for $10 and it costs $5 to print, you're getting 30% of the remaining $5.
Ah, okay. So the pie gets smaller and smaller as it
Yeah.
goes. Yeah.
So, like, you could sell a paperback for, say, $20, and you could sell an ebook for 3, and you're probably making more off the ebook.
Wow. That's kind of wild.
Mhm. But yeah, but and also yeah, it's for the paperback, it's printing cost and shipping, I believe. Then you get your 30% royalty.
Oh, so it's material and shipping.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Have you thought about being or going just exclusively ebook, or did you want options for both?
I want to stick with the options for both, especially since it doesn't cost me anything to have the paperbacks available, and I like having my own paperback copies. Like
Yeah.
I've always been bigger on having physical copies of things, so it's nice to have them on my shelf and just be like, I did that. Like,
Yeah.
something to be
So,
proud of.
yeah, exactly. So, what did it feel like to have your hands on your first copy of the book and your first book?
Oh, that was. it was crazy. I was not expecting it to happen. Like for years, like I was looking forward to it. I knew that I was going to finish writing a book when I first set out to do it. I knew I was going to be stubborn and make sure that I finished writing, but I never thought then that I would have actually made it to publication.
Hmm.
So yeah, once I opened, like I got that first box of like 20 copies in, and got the box from the front stoop. And it's like I know what's in here, but once I open this box, it's going to be even better. And just seeing them all, yeah, that was awesome.
So what did you do with those 20 copies? Did you give them to friends and family, or kind of what did you do with those?
Um, I've actually sold them locally, like mostly to friends and family and stuff. But uh, I have like a very supportive community around here, which is awesome. A lot of good friends, and a lot of us all kind of known each other for years, like through the local music scene and stuff. So years of like supporting each other's bands back in the day. So now like everyone just kind of gets that, like your friend creates something, so they want to be there to help you out. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
like my friend threw a big party for me in his backyard. Everyone came over and had a big barbecue, and people bought copies. My friends own a comic book shop, and that sells like comics and like tabletop RPGs and all that sort of stuff. So they toss copies on their shelves there for me and everything.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
So yeah, like everyone's been very supportive and helps me out as best they can. It's great.
Oh, it makes things a lot easier when you have support like that.
Yeah.
Have you tried taking your books to the local bookstore or anything like that? The books that they do not, you don't know people in?
I have there is one like the local book used bookstore I was going to, but everything's kind of in the same area
Hmm.
that like the comic book shop that has my books in them. They have a shelf of comics at the local bookstore that's like walking distance from the comic book shop.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's basically because I live in a city, but it's a small city, like just beyond big town.
Yeah.
So yeah, like everything is within walking distance of everything else. So just having them in the one place, I think, is enough.
That's cool though that they threw you a party and had food and kind of
Hmm.
people bought copies of it. That's really neat.
Yeah, yeah. And then when I had the second one come out, the my friends at the comic book shop had me come in, do a reading, and sold copies of the second book there.
Oh, right on. So, how tough is it to get traction for the second book after the first one? Is it did you try and reach out to people who bought the first one and let them know the second one's ready to go?
So yeah, that was like I said earlier, like I didn't do all the right things with setting out arcs and stuff. So I just kind of like let myself be set in my ways. The one I had, Travin Cloak over at Fanfi Addict, he reviewed the first book,
Hmm.
so I immediately got a hold of him, sent him a copy of the second one, and I'll be sending him a copy of the third too. And so he's been reviewing them for me.
Oh,
But
cool.
I was like, oh, well, I don't, if I don't have someone that read the first book, can't expect them to read the second book. So, yeah, I didn't even reach out to anyone like, oh, give this a read, because I'd have to be like, oh, give this book a read so that you can read this book and then review it for me.
Yeah.
So, another reason why it's going to be good to have a new standalone novel.
Yeah. It's makes it easier point of entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And when can we expect the third book? How close are you to having it ready?
Um, right now it depends. So, November I'm spending doing the the first draft of the standalone, and then next month I am going to be working on a short story that I'm going to submit to hopefully maybe get in an anthology, and
Oh,
then I'll
cool.
be back to the third book in the series, and I'm already probably, depending on what I decide, if it's going to be one or two books. Um, I'm about a third to a half of the way done with it already.
Oh, wow.
So I am planning on having that one be out. So originally, my goal was to release annually, um, and I'm hoping to stick with that. I know the first book came out September 2020. Second was May of 2021, and I was hoping for September of 2022 for the third one. It may go a little bit later, but I still think I should have it done before the end of 2022.
Oh, wow. And for the short story you're working on that you're considering submitting for an anthology, what genres of story is that one?
That one's probably going to be a little more on the grim dark ish side, I guess. It's going to be, it'll still be set in the same world because I did all the world building. They're all going to be set in this. Um, but it's going to be about this gambler that runs into an interesting situation with a god of luck that may actually be a god of death. She's not sure.
Hmm, nice. And Bill Richardson says series are tough for indie authors.
Yeah, that's, we were talking about mistakes when I started. I
Hmm.
should have started with a standalone.
Oh, really? You think so?
Yeah, I'm still happy I'm doing the series, but yeah, it probably would have been better because once you release that second book in a series, you have narrowed down your audience significantly
Mhm.
because now it's only people that have heard of you and read that first
Yeah.
book. But
And then you're invested in it, right? So
yeah,
you want to keep continue going.
oh yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna keep trying to work on standalones as I work on the series and just have as many things coming out as I can.
Nice. And when you're not writing or throwing axes, what do you enjoy doing?
I outside of work, I've been kind of not doing much lately.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, things, we're getting to the cold season again, so after a pandemic, and then I had a good summer. Got to do a lot, but yeah, I think we finally had our last warm day yesterday. Going to be getting into the 20-degree weather and stuff soon.
Oh man.
So yeah, probably going to be mostly working, reading, writing, and playing video games.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah,
Yeah. And Bill Richardson said the talking heads say you should do a series, but I don't think so. Says yes, you can't get reviews on second books.
yeah.
It's tough. 20-degree weather. Is that make it easier to write when you're kind of stuck in because of the bad weather?
Um, I get I get a little like cabin fever because I don't really mind the cold, uh, but nothing's really going on because it's cold out. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm the type of, like, I'll be out. It could be 30 degrees. I'll be outside in a t-shirt. It doesn't bother me if it's when it's like summertime here. That's different. Like, I'm not good with the heat because
Yeah.
we get like summers that are like, be like high 90s, but like 80% humidity or more.
Oh,
And then we'll have winters that could be like a few degrees below zero or something. But I prefer the winters.
Oh man, and I can't do the humidity thing. I'm used to the
Yeah.
dry heat. Yeah, the humidity makes it a lot worse.
Mm,
A lot more comfortable with the
yeah.
humidity
You
for
just
sure.
walk outside and just instantly are covered in sweat.
Yeah, exactly. It's awful. And you take a shower and you're still wet and you can never dry off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awful.
Like you just get out, dry off, and you're like, well, I basically need another shower again.
Yeah, you're still dripping, and yeah, it's not good. Do you have any favorite movies?
Um, I think to this day, my favorite movie would probably remain Evil Dead 2. Like, yeah. I haven't been watching a lot of movies lately, but when I was growing up, my brother and I would always just watch the horror movies, like Evil Dead, like all like the ones where they're like oh, I forget the name of it also. That movie that used to have the record for like the most fake blood used.
Mm,
Um, the lawnmower scene.
the
Dead
lawnmower
Alive.
scene. Oh,
Dead Alive. I
nice.
think that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, like that and Bad Taste, like all those ridiculous movies. But and I think um, Bad Taste that was Peter Jackson, I think, too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Like I remember all these awful movies I loved when I was younger, then finding out like, hey, that guy's gonna be doing the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I think he did Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles. You ever see that
Yeah.
one?
Mm-mm.
It was basically the Muppets on crack.
No, I have to watch it.
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. And then you're like, I'm I'm pretty sure it was him that did that movie. I can't remember 100%, but I think it
Oh,
was.
wow.
And then yeah, like, people, oh wow, he's doing Lord of the Rings. That's interesting.
That's a
I mean,
strange
it's
pairing.
great. But
Yeah.
yeah, just seeing the movies he used to do and comparing them, it's great.
Yeah, it's different. And did you see the new Evil Dead? Well, I say new, it's probably about, I don't know, 10 years old. Did you catch that one?
I haven't seen that yet. I've heard good things about it, but I just found there's no reason I haven't seen it yet. It just hasn't happened. I did see some of the series that was on for a while, Ash versus the Evil Dead,
Hmm.
which I think
How'd you
was
like that
around
one?
the same time.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that
I like,
series?
yeah, I mean, it's Bruce Campbell. He's mostly does no wrong.
Mostly. Bill Richardson says, yes, Bad Taste was Peter Jackson's first movie done in New Zealand. There you
Yep,
go.
I love that movie.
Bad Taste. Now I have to watch it. Throat music and Bad Taste now. Yeah, 1987. Population of a small town disappears and is replaced by aliens that chase human flesh for their intergalactic fast food chain. Sign me up for that one. Wow, wouldn't expect that one to be Peter Jackson's first movie after seeing Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
funny.
it's it's a great movie.
Now to watch it. And there's something that I like to ask all of my guests before I let them go. That's I try to have it, because I think it's an interesting question. Is what was your first job?
My first job was McDonald's when I was 14.
14. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that experience like?
Um, it was McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't like it, but I needed a job, so I had a record addiction back then. So now it's books, then it was records. Um, but yeah, and they always had me at 14. There's not much you can legally do for a job. Like
Yeah.
you can't be on the grills or anything like that. But I was always a big guy, so when I was working there, they're like, "Oh, if anyone walked in here, they'd think you're 16. Go work on the grill."
Really?
Yep.
Nice. Be better than just doing, working the register all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely. I bet I don't have to work with the public anymore. I'm happy
Yeah,
about.
it's tough with the public, especially now this time of year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I used to. I was a meat cutter at a grocery store for a few years. So this time of year was always rough as that. Just
Yeah.
with everyone coming in for hundreds and hundreds of turkeys and hams and all that.
Yeah, a friend of mine was a meat cutter. So I work with him now, but he has so many stories about this crazy stuff that happens for meat cutters.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting job.
Yeah. He has. I've known him for a while, and he always has new stories for me about his meat cutting days. It was probably only a couple of years, but he stretches it out pretty long. So
Mm,
sounds like grocery store is interesting times.
yeah, I think I did that for about 5 years, but my brother, he's been doing it for, I think he's going on like 20 years or so. He's been a meat cutter.
Oh wow,
Yeah, yeah, I got out of there. I hated working for a grocery store.
it's gotta be tough. Yeah, meat cutting, and it's a tough one. And Josh says when I was working as a Toronto paramedic, we picked up a guy who took his arm off almost to the shoulder within a meat grinder at an Asian supermarket.
That's I almost took my head off.
Really?
Yeah, I was I I was the only person on that was a cutter, and the cleanup guy came in, and I went out for my cigarette break and came back and had the bandsaw all taken apart for the most part, and someone wanted a steak cut, so I had to just quick throw it together as best as I could, most of the safety mechanisms off, and cut a steak, like a T-bone or something like that. But I go to do it and I just slip as the saw is running and come down with like the blade running right like
Oh,
that. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Why was the floor so slippery? The cleanup guy was trying to do an extra good job and oiled the floor.
oh.
He scrubbed it clean and oiled it.
S- So how close were you to losing your face in the grinder or in the cutter?
Um, it's like 4 inches.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was. I was pretty pissed when that happened. Just like
Oh,
when I found, I was just looked at. I was like, man, like just go take your 15-minute break. Like I need a minute. Like um, I'm angry. I don't want to yell at you or anything. Just like give me a minute.
oh man. In fact, now that you mentioned that, the friend of mine who worked as a meat cutter for so long, I think he knew someone who had their hand stuck in the grinder, or it was the machine that flattens the meats. Got his hand stuck in there and lost his hand. No good.
Yeah,
Yeah, 4 inches from the blade. That's stuff of a horror story.
Yeah, definitely a story that stuck with me. I think I was probably like 18 or 19 when that happened. So it's like almost
Oh
20
man.
years ago.
Oh man, that's tough. That's pretty scary. That makes you reevaluate and be because you get comfortable doing those kind of things, and then that
Mhm.
happens. Then you start paying more attention. Don't want to get your face stuck in a cutter.
Yeah.
That's tough. So the last question I have for you is, if roles were reversed and you were asking questions, is there anything you would have asked that I didn't ask?
And I would have asked myself,
Hmm. Oh, that if you were me, was there any question that you would have asked that I didn't ask?
no,
Okay.
no, I think maybe what the hell do you think you're doing?
I ask myself that every day, and I never have
Yeah.
an answer. Yeah, because I have no idea what I'm doing. So
Me too.
yeah.
But I
Well,
think we're
yeah,
all in that boat.
yeah. It's. I have no idea what I'm doing, but let's just do it anyway. See what happens. Right on. Well, thanks for coming by tonight to chat and to tell us about your books. And so, if someone wants to find you to learn more about your books or updates on the standalone or the third book, where can they find you?
So on Twitter, I occasionally use it, but you can always get a hold of me on it. I think I'm at Stone and Shield. And on Facebook, I don't think I've posted anything on it in a few months, but you can always get a hold of me on it again. I think that's under Fall of Emeralds. And yeah, those would probably be the two main ways. Those are the social media that I actually check regularly. I'm not the most active, but I do check it all the time. So if anyone ever wants to reach out to me, I'm there. And I have a blog, website sort of thing, but you're probably better off reaching me on the social media.
Yeah, I was just pulling up your website now, and that's fallofemeros.blogspot.com. But I'll
Yep,
include all those in the description. So do you have a like a mailing list that people can subscribe to as they can hear back from you and get updates?
I don't right now. I have to get on that. That's something I want to do. But before I do, I want to write a few short stories that I can set aside that would be just for the people on the mailing list.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So once I have those written, I'm going to get that up. But in the meantime, also, if anyone ever wants to reach out to me or anything, I also have the email followemrose@gmail.com. And if anyone ever reaches out, I'll always get back to you. Feel free.
Right on. Cool. Well, thanks a lot for accepting my invitation to come by and chat. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
We,
Thank you very much for having me. Oh,
yeah.
and I'd like to, anyone watching, if you're interested, I have some audiobook, copies of the audiobook that I'm willing to give away.
Oh, cool.
I have promo codes. They're good for the U.S. Audible in the U.S. and the U.K. So I don't know how you want it, what the best way to do that is. I know before you've had just people comment and on the video on YouTube,
Hmm.
we could do that and leave it open for people that watch this after it's live too. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we give away a couple copies of those.
Cool. I'll mention it in my update video this week, and see how many. You said you have 2 codes.
Um, I have more than that, so
Okay.
let's see how many people comment, and
Okay.
we'll either do a random number generator and pick out the winners, or maybe we'll just give copies to all of them.
Cool. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's. So I will add more details to that on social media and on the weekly update video and on this video too. So give
Awesome.
people a chance to sign up and get the audiobook because I'm going to be entering that too. So
Oh,
What a
you can have a copy. Like
right on. Yeah, I was gonna get my hands on a
you
copy
get a
too.
copy of it, man.
Cool. I was gonna say, how do I enter?
Yeah, no, you just get one.
Right on. Cool, everybody. Well, thanks for coming by, and be sure to leave a comment on the video after, and then I'll also update it on social media and my update video for the week, which will be Sunday. But I'll give more information for that. So awesome. Yeah, that's really exciting. That's great stuff. Good stuff. Well, thanks again, Thomas, for coming by and chatting, and thanks for everyone in the chat for coming by and interacting with us. It's always a fun time.
Thanks again for having me, and thanks everyone that came and checked it out. Always appreciated.
Yeah, so we have to do it again when after I finish the books. We'll have a chat if you're up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that. Thanks again, everybody, and be sure to leave a comment to enter the giveaway for the audiobook codes on Audible. Thanks everybody for coming by, and we'll talk to you soon.